Hi, my name is Sara Lawson and I'm a licensed designer with Sizzix. Today I'm going to show you how to make the project for my box pouch. This is a zippered pouch with a handle. It has a boxy shape and that's the project that I'm going to show you for this video. To start out, you'll need to cut out 2 pieces cut from your lining fabric. You'll need 2 pieces cut from your exterior fabric, which is going to be the outside of your box pouch. You'll need 2 cut out from the shape flex, which was a thin interfacing that you'll attach to the lining. And then you'll also need 2 pieces of foam interfacing cut out that you'll attach to your exterior fabric, and the foam interfacing just gives the pouch some nice body. You'll need a handle piece cut out from your exterior fabric and a handle piece cut out from your shape flex, the thin interfacing. And as you'll notice from the die, the main panel, so the body of the bag, and there's no blade on the top, so this piece will be cut on the fold. Today I'm using the Big Shot Plus machine, but you can use any of the machines in the Big Shot family. So I've got my cutting pad on the bottom, the die. I like to use washi tape to mark where that blade is missing, just so I can line up my fabric properly. Painter's tape or Scotch tape will work just as well. So I've got my tape, and as you'll notice where the blade ends, that's where you'll gently want to press down the tape. And don't press down too hard, because remember there's a blade there embedded in the foam. And for my box pouch, I wanted to use a large scale print. And so I've got this fabric right here with a bird motif in the center and the birds inside of a circle. And so I'm just going to fold that fabric in half so the circle is centered. And that fold is where I'm going to line up right against that washi tape right there. And that second cutting pad will go right on top. And if you get a little bit of the fabric that's not trimmed, go ahead and just take your scissors and give it a quick snip. And as you can see, I've got that bird motif centered on my fabric. After you have all your fabric pieces cut out, you want to attach them to interfacing. So to start, you'll take your exterior fabric and machine baste it to the foam interfacing, and you'll use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and just stitch all the way along the outer edge to attach the fabric to the foam. And for the lining fabric, you'll fuse the tacky side of the interfacing to the wrong side of the fabric using the manufacturer instructions, and you'll repeat that same process for the handle pieces. Next, you'll sew the zipper in place. The pattern instructions call for a 12-inch zipper, but I often use a longer zipper depending on what I have on hand in my stash at home. And so for this instance, I'm using a 14-inch zipper because it's quite easy to cut down. And the zipper will be pinned to the right side of the fabric with the zipper face down. And because we're using the foam interfacing, which is a little bit thicker, I like to use wonder clips to hold the fabric and the zipper in place. And so just go ahead and clip or pin that zipper all the way along the top edge of the fabric, and you'll measure down a scant quarter inch from the top of the fabric to pin that zipper into place. And you'll use your zipper foot, and you'll start stitching a 1/2 inch in from the end and stop stitching a 1/2 inch in from the other end, and make sure you backstitch. After the zipper is attached to the exterior fabric, you'll take the respective lining piece and you'll pin that so that the fabrics are right sides together, and as you can see, that zipper is sandwiched in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and pin that lining fabric in place. After the fabrics are pinned together, you'll actually flip to the wrong side of the exterior fabric, and you'll sew directly on top of the previous stitching from when you first attached the zipper to the exterior fabric. As you can see from the black stitching, my exterior and lining fabrics are attached and the zipper's sandwiched in the middle. After you've sewn your lining fabrics and exterior fabrics right sides together, you'll press the fabrics wrong sides together and you'll top stitch, and make sure you start and stop a 1/2 inch in from each side. So here's my top stitching, and then you'll repeat that process for the other long edge of the zipper. So I've got my front and back of the bag attached to the zipper and top stitched. The next step will be to sew the bottom of the bag right sides together. So I'll go ahead and grab my wonder clips again and just make sure that bottom edge is aligned. For this step, you'll want to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you're going to sew along the entire bottom edge of the main panels of the bag. And you'll go ahead and repeat this same process, but with the lining fabrics. The only exception will be that when you go ahead and sew the bottom edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you'll need to leave an opening that's centered on the bottom of the lining, and that's to help you turn the bag right sides out. As you can see from the stitching on my lining fabric, I've left that opening along the bottom of the box pouch. The next step will be to sew the sides of the pouch together. And for that step, you'll want to pinch the end with the zipper with the seam on the bottom of the bag. And for this step, you're only pinning the exterior fabrics and pushing the lining fabrics out of the way. Once you have those ends pinned, I just wanted to make sure to mention that if you're using a longer zipper like I am, to make sure to pull that zipper head past the pinned edge. Otherwise, you'll end up sewing and cutting that zipper head off the end of the fabric, which would be a huge problem because then your pouch would not be able to zip and unzip. After you have those ends sewn, now's a good time to go ahead and trim that zipper flush with the edge of the fabric. Now let's repeat that same process with the ends of the lining. So again, we'll pin the fabrics right sides together and push that exterior fabric out of the way. And do the same thing to pin the opposite end. For this sewing step, you'll want to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I have my lining stitched in place, and I also wanted to mention you'll also be sewing over the zipper when you sew the lining fabric. Now let's make the handle. You already have the fabric attached to the Shapeflex interfacing, and we're going to go ahead and move it over to the ironing board and press those fabrics wrong sides together. We need to enclose those raw edges so you don't have raw edges showing on your handle. So you'll measure up a 1/4 inch up from the bottom edge of the handle and a 1/4 inch down from the top edge of the handle, and then you'll just press toward the wrong side of the fabric. Finally, you'll press the handle in half along that original crease, and after that's pressed, you'll go ahead and move that over to the sewing machine and do some top stitching. I used an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to top stitch. And now it's time to attach that to the box pouch. To attach the handle, first you'll find the end of the box pouch where your zipper head is, and that's the same edge that I like to attach the handle. So the fabric of the exterior will be right sides against the end of the handle, and the handle will start on the opposite end as your seam. So here's my handle, and you'll pinch that corner so that the seam aligns with the opposite end of the handle, and then just go ahead and clip a wonder clip on to hold that in place. And you'll bring the opposite end of the handle in through the other side, and same thing, use a wonder clip to pin it in place and make sure that the handle isn't twisted so that it doesn't look wonky when the pouch is finished. And you'll do the same thing to pinch the opposite end of the bag, but obviously this end doesn't have the handle, so just go ahead and pinch the ends so that the seam is centered along the opposite end of the opening. Okay, and you can go ahead and take that over to the sewing machine, and you'll be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. After you've sewn all 4 corners of the exterior fabric, you'll go ahead and repeat the same exact process for the lining fabrics, all 4 corners. After you have all the 4 corners sewn of your exterior and your lining, you'll pull the bag right side out through that hole you left in the lining, and this is the step that I like to call the birthing of the bag. So you'll just go ahead and reach in that hole and pull everything out through the opening. And I like to use either a bamboo chopstick or a turning tool just to make sure those corners are poked out and they look nice. And you can go ahead and close up that opening in the lining either by machine. You can use an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to sew those fabrics so that they're right sides together, or you can sew it by hand with a slip stitch. So my pouch looks a little bit lumpy, and I find that pressing the pouch really well helps it give it that nice boxy shape. I like to pinch the corners and create sort of a line, which is the bottom of the pouch, and then take your iron and just glide it along the bottom of the pouch, and it'll start to form a nice boxy shape. And the same for the top. Pinch the top corners and then press that edge right there. And you'll press those side edges in the same manner. Again, pinch the corners to form the side bottom edge. And then zip that zipper closed a little bit, and same thing with the top corners. Pinch and press. So here's the completed box pouch, and as you can see, this went together really fast and easy, and this is great for gifts, for craft shows, for teacher gifts, for Christmas presents, for just about anything.